Welcome to episode 127 of Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and today we continue with the Last Tantalides and the story of Iphigenia in the land of the Tauri. After leaving Athens, Orestes and Pylades again went to the oracle of Apollo in Delphi. Orestes had indeed been acquitted, but he had not recovered from his madness and asked the god what he was now to do. The priestess said that the prince would be restored to health and happiness in Mycenae, but that first he was to sail to the peninsula of the Tauri, where Artemis, Apollo's sister, had her temple. There he was to carry off the image of the goddess, which, according to a legend of the barbarian people of that region, had fallen from heaven and had been reverenced there ever since. When he had taken it down by force or ruse, he was to bring it to Athens, for the goddess had grown tired of the savage people of that alien land and longed for gentler worshippers. As soon as this was accomplished, his madness and exile would be at an end. Pylades did not desert his friend, but accompanied him on this dangerous quest. The Tauri were in the habit of sacrificing to Artemis all the shipwrecked or other strangers who came to their shores. In war, they cut off the heads of their captured enemies, fastened them to poles, and fixed these on the roofs of their houses as guardians to keep watch over the land. Now, the reason the oracle was sending Orestes to this cruel tribe was that Aulus, when Agamemnon was about to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia, the advice of Calchas the soothsayer, a hind had appeared at the altar just as the priest brandished the blade above the girl's throat. Artemis had removed Iphigenia from the eyes of the Argives and carried her off across the sea through the shining clouds to her own temple in the land of the Tauri. There, Thos, the king of this barbarian people, found her and made her the priestess of Artemis. Her service required her to see to the sacrifice of every stranger who set foot in that land, and these were for the most part her own countrymen. It is true that she had only to consecrate the victim. It was the task of others to drag it to the altar and do the slaughtering. Still, her lot was sad and hopeless. The girl had been performing her distasteful office for many years. The king held her in high esteem, and the people reverenced her for her charm and gentleness. So she lived far from her home, utterly unfamiliar with the destinies of her house. But one night, she dreamed she had left the land of Tauri and was home in Argos, sleeping surrounded by her handmaids. Suddenly, the earth began to tremble and heave, and she saw herself fleeing from the palace, standing outside, while the roof shook and the colonnade swayed and crashed to the ground. Only one column of her father's house remained upright, and all at once it seemed to her that it was turning into a man. The Capitol became a head ringed with blonde locks, and the head spoke to her in her own language. But what it said the girl had forgotten when she awoke. All she knew was that in her dream she had obeyed the demands of her priestly office. She had sprinkled the man, who was a pillar of her father's palace, with holy water to consecrate him for death, and while she did this she wept. When she roused herself from the dream, her cheeks were wet with tears. On the morning after this night, Orestes and his friend Pylades landed on the shore of the Tauri and went toward the temple of Artemis. Soon they reached the structure the barbarians had put up to the goddess. It resembled a prison rather than a dwelling of a deity, and they looked at the high and solid wall in silent amazement. Orestes was the first to speak. "My faithful friend," he said, "you have shared the dangers of this journey with me, but what shall we do now? Shall we climb the spiral stairs around the wall? I fear that when we reach the top, this unknown building will seem like a labyrinth to us. Undoubtedly, we shall find the doors to the rooms locked with iron bolts, and if our attempts get in roused, the guards, who must be placed all around the sanctuary, they will seize us and kill us. For we have heard that much Argive blood has already spattered the altar of this implacable goddess. Would it not be wiser to return to the ship which brought us here?" If we did that, it would be the very first time we have taken to flight, answered Pylades. Let us hold sacred the oracle of Apollo. But we must indeed leave this place. The best thing would be to hide in a grotto on the shore, far from our ship, so that no one seeing it will be able to tell the cruel ruler of this country anything about its crew. But when night falls, let us venture out. We know the position of the temple. Through some ruse or other we shall get in, and once we have the image in our hands, I am sure we shall be able to get back to the shore. Brave men court danger. We have come a long way. Would it not be shameful to turn back when we are so close to the goal and go home without the prize the god has commanded us to seize? We shall do as you say, Orestes exclaimed. Let us hide through the day, and may night bring us success. The sun was high in the heavens when a herdsman came running from the shore straight towards the priestess Artemis, standing on the threshold of her temple. He brought her the news that 2 youths, welcome victims for the goddess, had landed on that coast. Prepare for the sacred rites, priestess, he said. The sooner the better. Where do these strangers come from? Iphigenia asked mournfully. They are Argives, answered the herdsman. That is all we know so far, except that one of them is called Pylades. They are our captives. Tell me about them, said the priestess. How did it happen, and where did you capture them? We were just bathing our cattle in the sea. One after another we drove into the swirling waters. There is a grotto there, wave-washed, where the fishers go to collect purple snails. Here one of us saw 2 young men. They seemed so radiant to us that we took them for gods and wanted to throw ourselves at the ground before them, but another who stood near, a pert, inquisitive fellow, was not so foolish. He laughed when he saw his companion bending his knee and said, Don't you see that these are shipwrecked strangers who have hidden in the caves because they know of our custom of sacrificing all those that reach these shores? Most of us agreed with him, and we prepared to seize the 2 men. Just then one of the strangers came out of the grotto, shook his head wildly, and flung out his arms. He groaned aloud in the throes of madness, cried, Pylades, Pylades, look over there! See the dark huntress, the dragon from Hades, who wants to murder me. She's coming at me, and her head is ringed with hissing snakes. And there another. She's breathing fire. She's carrying my own mother in her arms, and now she is threatening to hurl a rock at me. Help! She is killing me! But we could not see nothing of all the horrors he raved about, the herdsman continued. He must have taken the bellowing of our cattle and the barking of the dogs for the voices of the Furies. And now we were alarmed because the stranger drew his sword, rushed at our cows, and slashed right and left until the sea was red with their blood. At last we managed to gather our wits, blew into our conch shells to summon the peasants, and advanced on the armed stranger in a solid mass. His madness was slowly leaving him, and he fell on the ground, foaming at the mouth. We threw stones at him while his companion wiped the froth from his lips and put his own mantle around him. In another instant, the youth seemed to be fully conscious of what was happening. He jumped up and defended himself and his comrades, but there were so many of us that soon the 2 strangers had to give up. We surrounded them and made them drop their weapons, and finally they yielded in sheer weariness. Then we captured them and took them to Thos, our king. He had barely glanced at them when he ordered us to take them to you, O priestess. Pray for many more splendid victims, for if you sacrifice these men of Argos, Greece will atone for all the pain you have forced to suffer, and you will be avenged for their attempt to kill you as an offering for Artemis at Aulis. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales. Many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.